In this module, we cover the CONN objects. Experienced Automic users should be familiar with connection objects to create connections to various systems for functional purposes, like running certain types of application jobs. With Airflow and GCC, it's assumed that we'll need to connect to multiple instances of these environments. When the agent connects to the engine, a template Airflow connection object is created. We'll be able to create as many CONN objects as there are instances. These connection objects have hard references to the REST API endpoints. Then we reference the connection to the DAG job when we define it. There are two types of connections to Airflow and GCC respectively. We'll explore the differences between them, especially as regards authentication. Finally, we'll perform a demo and show how to set up two CONNs for Airflow and GCC. For every cloud scheduler instance, you need a matching CONN object. Use the template CONN object that was added to AWI when the agent first connected to the engine. When this is done, the DAG jobs we create are submitted to the appropriate instance by referencing the CONN. In the object itself, look for two drop-down menus. The first is provider. The two options are Apache Airflow and GCC. The other drop-down menu is the authentication mode. Airflow has two modes, basic with a simple user and password to the Airflow API, or OAuth 2, which relies on a dedicated third-party authentication server. If you're not familiar with OAuth 2, you specify the server endpoint, a client's public identifier, the matching secret ID, which is only known to you, the server, and the Airflow host, and finally the scope. We use scope to list the Airflow teams authorized to submit this DAG process. For Google Cloud Composer, you have a choice between account key and workload identity. The service account key is the key to the account assigned to the GCC environments. The workload identity feature is used with the Google Kubernetes engine. It impersonates the service account. Let's perform a demo. Experienced Automic users should be entirely comfortable with creating a new CONN object. Before proceeding, you should make sure that you're able to access the API. Simply enter the URL to the REST API in a browser. In other words, the hostname, the ports, /API/v1/dags. Provided the basic auth value has been enabled in the Airflow config file, the integration should work. We have a connections folder. We open it and create an Airflow connection. We give it a name that is consistent with your naming policy and set a title. The endpoint is the REST API URL, and you should not include a DAGs folder. You have a choice between Airflow and GCC as a provider. We keep Airflow for now. We'll use the basic authentication type, although you could use OAuth 2, and we'll enter the admin name and password. Once you've created an Airflow jobs object with the required attributes, you'll be in a position to check that the connection is valid by using the browse function. If you can access the list of available DAGs on the target instance, the CONN object is configured correctly. We can access the system. The CONN object is valid. There are some key differences for a connection to GCC. You still specify the endpoints, but the two authentication type options are service account key and workload identity. Let's start with the former. When GCC is deployed, you have the option of creating service accounts. They're comparable to user accounts. Each service account is granted a set of permissions defined as roles. One of those roles is the right to submit DAGs. As long as a DAG is submitted in GCC under that service account, it will execute. For each service account, we have the option of downloading a key in GCC. You simply select the service account and use the key download function. The service account needs certain roles and permissions to execute DAG jobs and retrieve logs. It can be the Composer admin role. Check the Composer documentation on cloudgoogle.com, specifically the pages on access control. You download the key and copy it to the Airflow agent host in a directory of your choice. When you define the CONN objects, you select Service Account Key and reference the key name and location on the agent host in the field Service Account Key. The other option is Workload Identity. It only works if the agent was installed in a Google Kubernetes engine container. Then it's transparent. The Service Account Key information is immediately available to GCC and the CONN objects will be valid.